Sometimes I ask myself, I wonder what Arage will end up on my desk next. I never once thought a game named Fantasy Tavern Sextet Volume 1 New World Days would show up. Surprisingly, with the title so pandering, I was expecting something more vulgar. However, I then realized that Sextet is defined as a set of 6 people, and I felt like the degenerate that I never wanted to become. Still, there's a rather sweet story tied to this comedic fantasy Arage. Fantasy Tavern Sextet Volume 1 New World Days is the first part of a fantasy story where a nameless protagonist finds himself sucked into another dimension. The story's opening is paced quickly as you meet the main character, who works as a cook in a maid cafe. After closing, he opens a locker where he is transported to another world and saved by a bar owner named Luffy. The two travel back to her tavern, which is called the Stray Sheep, where they meet some patrons, and it's decided that he will be the new cook. Additionally, a cat girl shows up named Daisy, who acts as the loud character of the story. There's plenty of interactions between the cast, but this entry mainly focuses on forming a relationship with Luffy and Daisy. Nothing about this story is actually good, but it's also not bad. The main protagonist is not your typical horny main protag featured in other Quartet games. Instead, he's a little more thoughtful and understanding of the characters around him. Still, expect the typical accidental moments of him walking in on a character changing or falling on a character and not realizing where his hands are. For the most part, the game tries to keep a comedic tone throughout the first half with some moments of backstory and world building. You'll have a better idea of the world by the midpoint of this adventure, and then it turns into more of a romance thereafter. It plays it safe, and I wasn't ever really bored at any moment, so I can say that's a plus for me in the story as a whole. I will say that I found it interesting how furries were seen as rodents in this world, which played some significance in Daisy's character and some scenes. Laziness seems to hold this Arage back from being better, as the story has all the workings to create a nicely balanced choice system. During gameplay, players can make choices, but none of them matter, save for the last choice where you get to choose one or both of the girls. This is a missed opportunity, as some of the choices would have weighed heavily on the narrative. For instance, you can choose not to kiss the girls, but they'll kiss you anyway. Sure, my first time through I chose to kiss both of them, which made the scene of them finding out so significant, but then I replayed and found out that it didn't really matter and the whole story played out the same every time. There were other similar choices in the game, none of which affect the outcome, and you'll always get romantic with these girls. Although the ending leaves readers on a cliffhanger, I think the story handles its runtime well. The entire story is lighthearted and vanilla, and you'll probably complete it in one sitting without feeling like it wasted your time. Further, it does well in building up the fantasy world that leaves the next volume open to explore more about the characters and introduce another duo into the mix. The art is rather good, which has become a standard from the developer. The characters are well animated and the range of emotions fit their voices. There weren't any costume changes that I can recall, and there is a good batch of environment backgrounds for CGs. Sadly, the music is just annoying, and I turned that down within the first hour. Fantasy Tavern Sextet Volume 1 New World Days is a decent romantic comedy that doesn't force you to play as a protagonist with a one-track mind. There's some depth, but not much, as the choices don't matter, and you'll probably forget about any emotional beats once the romance kicks in. Still, I'm looking forward to the next volumes to see where this fantasy goes. Noisy Pixel is giving Fantasy Tavern Sextet Volume 1 New World Days a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please read the full review on noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.